We're making 5 Rustic Valentine projects today as part of Lover's Lane collaboration. Welcome to Up On My DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. The Lover's Lane collaboration is hosted by my friends, Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, Annie of Crafting with Indiana Jones, Martina of The Secret Craft Room, and me. Hi. I'll have links to these ladies' channels in the description box along with a link to the playlist. So we have a lot to do today. Let's get into it. I cut myself a piece of scrap wood 7.5 inches wide by 6 inches high. I'm going to give this a black base coat. This is just regular old Ceramcoat black acrylic paint. And I'm going to cover the front of the surface as well as all 4 sides. I'm going to give this a quick late sanding. I'm pulling out my Crackle medium. This is by FolkArt. I want this to have a really vintage, beat up, distressed look. So I'm going to pour it right on here and give this a really heavy coat. I'm using this old chip brush. I'm going to spread it out. The thicker you apply this particular medium, the wider and bigger the cracks will be. If you want thinner, smaller cracks, you would just apply a thin coat. Once it's on there, we're going to let it dry for a good 20 minutes or so. I want it to be totally dry. I want to do a reverse stencil effect here, so I've cut myself the word love using my Silhouette Cameo. This vinyl is actually shelving vinyl, contact paper. I got it at Target for like $5 a roll. I use that whenever I'm going to do stencils. It's definitely a budget-friendly way to cut a stencil. Right, okay, let's get this burnished on. Now I'm going to apply a white top coat. This is just Ceramcoat white acrylic paint. And you have to apply a top coat in order for the crackling to take effect, obviously. So you really do want a paint color that is in contrast to your base color. I'm also going to do just real quick loose strokes along the sides there. I want some of that black paint to peek through. Now all we have to do is let it dry. Before I remove the vinyl, I want to add a little bit of distressing here. So I'm taking some light cinnamon paint. This is by Americana. I'm going to dab some on in the corners, and I'm adding actual cinnamon to give it a little bit of texture, that rusty effect. You feel me? I'm going to add a little bit of that paint, just the paint, in various places around the sign to give it a more aged look, but just on the corners, I'll add the cinnamon. Now that that's done, I can remove the vinyl. I love doing this. This is my favorite bit. Revealing the letters underneath. And these letters actually are a lot more crisp than I actually wanted them. I guess because of the Crackle medium. I guess that kind of worked the same way Mod Podge would, gives you a nice crisp line. But that's okay, we're going to do a little more distressing. I'm coming back in with my sanding block, and I am just going to scruff this up until it looks well aged. I'm going to take a nice damp rag here and wipe off any of the dust. To give it an even more vintage feel, I'm pulling out my JoSonja wood gel. This is in Fruitwood. This will act as a stain. I'm going to brush it on, mainly focusing on the edges of the sign. So once I get it applied, I'm going to wipe it back with a towel. I also want to add some of that stain to the sides. Once that's done, all I have to do is spray on a clear matte sealer, and we're done. Quick and easy. You gotta love a rustic sign, right? So for our next sign, I cut a 4-inch piece of wood, 8 inches long, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to base coat it with some black acrylic paint, including the sides. I actually went back and painted the back of all my signs as well. I'm going to add some more Crackle medium. This time I'm focusing more on the corners. I'm going to do a very light coat across the center. Now, I originally saw this sign at a bridal shower, and I thought it was really cute and perfect for Valentine's Day. So once again, once I get this Crackle medium on, I'm going to let this dry until it's completely dry, so a good 20 minutes. I cut out P.S. I Love You in vinyl. It appears I lost one of the periods after the letter P, but that's okay. We'll paint that in later. So I'm just going to burnish this into place just like before. We'll apply the top coat of white. This is meant to look like a love letter envelope. We want to make sure we get the sides. Now we're going to peel up the vinyl. This sign's got some nice crackling. I'm going to dip that missing period in with some black paint. I don't like the way that looks. Nope, still don't like it. Gonna wipe that off and reapply. Yeah, and you know what? Even though the black paint's left behind, I'm not worried about it because it's supposed to be rustic, right? Okay, let's try that again. That'll work. I have here some stamps that look like, postage marks. So I am just using some black ink and pressing them into place. Let's go over that one a second time. That's really light. And we're going to sand it. Again, I want to rough it up, make it look old. This time to distress it, I'm going to use some of the Tim Holtz Vintage Photograph ink, and I'm just going to hit the edges a little bit on the envelope, the face of the envelope part, anywhere where I think it might need it, and this is done. This will also get a coat of clear matte sealer. I think this is really cute and easy. What do you guys think? I found this little wooden craft tag in my stash. So this time we're going to start out with white. Give this 2 coats for a base coat. I cut the number 14 from vinyl, so I'm just going to burnish that into place. And I'm switching gears here. My top coat is going to be Ceramcoat charcoal. Let's add a little cinnamon rust. So we're going to do this the same way. I'm just going to hit it in different spots where I think, it might be rusty. So I'm brushing on that light cinnamon paint, and I'll shake on some real cinnamon. We'll peel off the vinyl to reveal that 14. And now I'm really going to sand this and scruff it up a good bit. I really want this guy to look beat up. Now I'm going to go over the number 14 with some of that vintage photograph ink just to age it a wee bit. And we're going to hit that with some of the clear matte sealer too. That will also seal in that cinnamon so it won't shake off. And there you go. This guy's done. For our final sign, I cut another piece of that 4x to 12 inches. And from my stash, I have here this old country style heart that was, as you can see, previously painted. So this will get mounted to the wood sign, but I'm also going to use a piece of crumpled up tissue paper. This is going to give that heart some texture. Yeah, so I'm just going to make sure there's lots of wrinkles in it. So I'm going to take a little Mod Podge and apply it all over the surface of the heart. Going to lay my crumply tissue paper over top and give that a top coat of Mod Podge. I'm going to outline the remainder of that tissue paper, the excess, with a little water and pull it away. And then I'm going to come in with my sanding block and knock off any of those loose edges. Okay, so here I got ahead of myself. I start painting it red. Totally forgot I wanted to do a charcoal base coat. So eventually I realized, and here I am doing the charcoal base coat. Now I come back in and I'm going to give it a really loose coat of Americana Cherry Red. To give it a little dimension, I'm going to come over top with, again, a loose, not quite a dry brush, but not a kick off it, of some watermelon. So this is Ceramcoat watermelon going over top, just adding a little bit of highlight to the heart. I'll distress the edges with some black ink. So again, I'm just using a cosmetic sponge going in there along the edges and probably a little across the surface of the heart to pick up some of those wrinkles. I stamped out the words "Be Mine" and I tore them from some cardstock. So I'm just hitting the edges with some black ink and I'm going to come in with the vintage photograph ink to distress it. I used alphabet stamps to create the words, but you could always just print these out on your printer and, tear them away to give them the deckled edge. Once I get them all distressed, we are going to Mod Podge them into place. Or as my girl Dawn from Shabby Meets Bling would say, the podge. I'm going to give this a top coat of Mod Podge too. Make sure it's well sealed. We're going to come back in with some of that cinnamon paint and rust up our heart. I'm mostly focusing on the edges of the heart with the rusty look. I sprayed a coat of clear matte sealer on this too, just to keep the cinnamon from shedding. Now let's work on the sign part. This is going to get a quick coat of white paint. And I'm going to add my vinyl, a 14 down here, and Feb up top here. Now, I want the Feb to kind of overhang the sides a wee bit. Once I get this burnished into place, I'll remove the transfer tape. And I'm just going to press the overhanging letters down along the sides. Now we're going to give it a top coat of charcoal, including the sides. Let's peel up the vinyl. Whee! I like when things are off-center, especially on rustic items or industrial type items. I just think that looks cool. You feel me? We'll give it a good old sanding, really rough it up, age it. I'll give the surface a coat of my JoSonja Fruitwood stain. I really like this stain. I love the gel. JoSonja is a great product. And this color, just, I don't know, it's like the perfect vintage distressed, I think, color-wise. Gives a sepia appearance. You feel me? I'm going to use some Titebond glue here to attach my heart to the sign, right there in between the Feb and the 14. I'm going to add a couple of rusty screws up here at the top and two toward the bottom of the point of the heart. Really more for aesthetics, but it'll keep the heart in place too. These are just little wood screws. They were black screws and I just dabbed them with some cinnamon to give them that rusty appearance. And this is going to get a top coat of the clear matte sealer as well. And our final project for the day is this bird cage made from leftover junk. So to make my heart, I'm going to use some Model Magic, but a paper heart would do, or wooden heart, whatever you got. I'm going to need some wire here. This is 19 gauge, and I have a candle jar lid. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out some of this Model Magic clay. Now this is clay I had from previous projects. I added paint to it to make it red. If you want to see how I did that, I'll link a video below. It shows you how I did it. And I rolled it flat and cut a heart from the clay. But again, you don't have to use a clay heart. You could use a wood heart, a paper heart, styrofoam, whatever you have on hand. Now I'm just going to let this dry overnight. In the meantime, we're going to work on the bird cage. So I'm going to take this candle lid here and I'm going to give it a coat of black chalk paint. This is going to give it a more rustic appearance. I'm really not being too fussy about this. I just want to get a coat of the paint on there to take down the shine of the lid. You can see it's a really shiny lid. I'm going to drill out 8 holes in the top of the lid. I want these to be, pretty much evenly divided. So to do that, what I did is added the hole at the top and then went directly opposite it. And I kept doing that until I had 8 holes. Does that make sense? There we go. 8 holes. Now, of course, we want to add a little rust to this. So again, just like before, I'm just going to dab on some of that light cinnamon paint and shake on some real cinnamon. When I'm happy with it, I'm going to spray it with the clear matte sealer to keep the cinnamon in place. I cut myself 8 12-inch lengths of the 19 gauge wire, and I'm going to use my needle nose pliers here to give each wire a wee bit of a curve. Here, I'll show you here. Let me cut this bit off, and I just curled the ends around to make them into little hooks. I went about a 2-inch bit of wire in that hook part. You know what I'm saying? We're going to thread the wires into the holes. To keep the wires in place while I'm working on this, I want to elevate it. So I just grabbed a glass and I don't know, some kind of little container here, just so that I can put the lid on top. And once I get the wire threaded through, they're not pushing out, you know what I mean? It just makes it easier to work on this. So we're just going to thread each of those 8 hooks through those holes. Okay, now we got them all into place here. Now I'm going to lift it and I'm going to grab all the wires so that they don't fall out of the lid. I'm going to grab them at the top here. See? Now this part's a wee bit tricky. I'm going to take that wire from the hook part and wrap it around the extending wire at the base there. I want it to be nice and tight. So I'm just going to use my pliers to get that wire wrapped around itself there as tight as I can. The good thing about the 19 gauge wire is it's easy enough to bend, but it's also sturdy enough to stay in place. So I'm going to do this to each and every wire. Now I'm going to cut a piece of, I think this is 22 gauge wire, not quite paddle wire, it's a little thicker than that. Now I'm going to grab the wire and kind of pull it all together at the top here to make our little cage. So just going to gather it. And I'm going to wrap this bit of wire around it so that it's nice and tight. So now it kind of looks like a corn stalk, don't you think? I'm going to come in with my noodle nose pliers, and I'm going to curl all of that excess wire at the top, make it look pretty. Okay, now that the top is done, I am just going to tug on the wires to pull them out a little bit and shape them like a cage. I don't mind if it's a little bit wonky or oddly shaped because I like that kind of whimsical look. Now that my heart's dry, I'm going to give it a couple of coats of that Americana cherry red that I did the other heart. I'm going to give it a top coat of Mod Podge. And for this heart, I stamped out the word forever onto cardstock. I did the same decal effect and hit the edges with ink. So we're going to place that right in the center of this heart. And I'm going to distress the edges both with some of the vintage photograph ink and some of the black ink. Yeah, I'm digging this. Very vintage. To attach the heart to the inside of the cage, I'm going to take a little bit more of that 22 gauge wire, push it through my heart. I'm going to give that wire a twist. And now I'm going to place the heart in the center of the cage. I'm going to wrap the extra wire at the top of the heart there around the wires at the top of the cage. And it'll just dangle in the center. And we're done. I think this is my favorite piece. I love the way this turned out. Let me know what you think. Let's take a final look at all of our projects. I'm really pleased with the way all of these turned out, particularly the bird cage. Absolutely love that. Might have to make some more of those. Let me know what you guys thought of the projects. Share it down in the comments if you have a favorite. Please be sure to check out all of my fabulous co-hosts. Links to their channels will be in the description box, along with the playlist and a list of my supplies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.